Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the deal. We're retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, you're in the right spot. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace. When we go live or upload another video. Tonight, we got a treat for you. Inside the courtroom, the murder trial of Robert Brooks. We've got local news reporter from the freelancenews.org, reporter JB Nicholas. He has given us a good half hour, 40 minutes. Hopefully I can squeeze 40 minutes out of him, of his time. He has been inside the courtroom every day since jury selection. And don't forget, folks, he was at every press conference. He asked questions of the special prosecutor Fitzpatrick. He is asking the tough questions. So I want to say thank you, and everybody, please say thank you to JB when he jumps on with us. We're going to go through all the days of the court, the reactions inside the courtroom. There is family of Robert Brooks Jr., Robert Brooks' father, his other son, and many other loved ones and family members representing the Brooks family. But there's also family members of these perps, these monsters, these murderers who took the life of Robert Brooks on December 9th, 2024. We watched it all on video. We were sickened by it. So I want to say thank you to everybody for being here. Without further ado, I want to introduce my friend. I can call him a friend because, look, we don't all agree with everything, but at the end of the day, I have a mad respect for JB. So thank you for joining me, JB. Good evening. What are you pouring there? Is that an adult beverage or is that?
Yeah, it's a Lieutenant Dan Warhorse.
I like it. It's Saturday night and we're all adults here. JB Nicholas from the freelancenews.org. Thank you for being here. We just can't wait to hear about some of your observations from inside the courtroom. This is a really highly contested trial that we were waiting to hear and see. A lot of these monsters took plea deals, 22 years for most of them, for the most part. But at the end of the day, these perps, Kingsley, Kiefer, and Gallagher, thought it was a good idea. Gallagher thought it was a good idea to take this to trial. Hey, your thoughts for our audience on what you've seen thus far, and I know we're going to go into it.
Yeah, let's start with these guys' decisions to go to trial in the first place, right? Because that's a question a lot of people are asking me, like, what's going through these guys' minds? Like, what are they thinking? You know, I mean, Farina and Anzalone, two of the principal actors, got 22 years in plea bargains, and these guys decided to take it to trial. My answer to that is if you're, charged with murder and the prosecutor is offering you 22 years, it's kind of easy to think to yourself, well, if I go to trial, I'm just going to get 3 more years. So what's the difference? Why don't I just roll the dice and go to trial and maybe I'll get lucky? So I think maybe that is what's going through these guys' mind when they decided to take it to trial instead of accept a 22-year plea bargain from Special Prosecutor Bill Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I thought along the same lines. Any good defense attorney would say, make the state prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. We know that everybody is innocent until proven guilty, but in this case, we have something that's so gosh darn unique. It's body cam video, and none of these perps, these are gang members. Mr. Fitzpatrick, in open court, called these monsters gang members, and I agree with them. These are vicious murderers who have not. This is not their first rodeo. In my opinion, they've been doing this for a long time. And JB, you've been in the system, and how things work a lot better than somebody like me, and a lot better than somebody out on the outside. These guys, God only knows how many people they've maimed, severely injured, or murdered in the past, and that's a bigger question, right?
That's a question I'm hearing a lot, DutyRon, actually, from a lot of people. How many people have these guys killed?
Right.
And, you know, and I'm not just talking about the beat up squad at Marcy, you know, that included these guys. I'm talking about beat up squads in each of the other 42 New York State prisons that currently exist, which at one time there were 65 of them, including, you know, closed maximum security facilities like Comstock and Sullivan. Yeah. So you're not the only one asking that question right now, DutyRon. I've been asked that question probably 3 or 4 times in the last couple of days. And the answer to that question is not very satisfying. And it has to do with the weakness of the state's freedom of information law. This New York's freedom of information law looks good on paper, but it's worth nothing in practice. It's trash. You might as well not even have it. Florida has a better freedom of information law than New York does. Okay. And the Sunshine State, yeah, in some respects, it lives up to it. So there's no answer to that, Ron. It's a black box, and the public is excluded from that for the most part.
Yeah, and that's very unfortunate, and things have to change because that black box can't exist going forward, especially when we now have this in-our-face video. There's hundreds, possibly even maybe close to 1,000 people who have reached out to me personally that their loved ones who are incarcerated individuals in New York State have been either beaten or are right now being beaten or have been beaten in the past by correctional officers. And I was overwhelmed by the amount of people when I started covering this that was hitting up on my website and saying, hey, can you cover my son's case? Can you cover my uncle's case? Can you cover my husband's case? And I was just overwhelmed by it, you know. And I heard everybody out, and I spoke with people, and I've actually got some people that I talked to on the phone. But let's reel this in, JB. We have Amazing Ant who's going to join us, retired NYPD sergeant. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of. I want to talk about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. These are days 2 through 5. Very important days. On opening on Tuesday, we heard Mr. Fitzpatrick. He gave an emotional opening statement that you don't usually hear from prosecutors. I was actually, this is the first time I ever heard him speak professionally in court because I never saw him at trial. And he gave an emotional, powerful opening statement.
People that I know do, lawyers of all kinds, plaintiffs' lawyers, defense lawyers, all kinds of lawyers said that Fitzpatrick's opening statement, it hit all the right marks. There was no false tones in it. It was very, very good. And the gang part, now remember, that's part of the charges in the case, that these guys were a gang assault is one of the charges in the case, and that the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And so this wasn't just rhetoric from Fitzpatrick. He has to prove that these guys were functioning as a gang when they killed Robert Brooks. And here's what Fitzpatrick said. They were a gang. They took turns collectively and individually of punching him, kneeing him, pepper spraying him, choking him, pinning him down, cuffing his legs. He said, they killed him. Fitzpatrick said, remember that word, they. And, you know, I got to tell you, to sit in a courtroom and hear a prosecutor call sworn law enforcement officers a gang, it's really what happened. Like, how did we get here? What's going on?
Right. Yeah. I want to just take a little piece here and listen to Prosecutor Fitzpatrick, Bill Fitzpatrick, on day 2. Some people, you know, were confused and thought this was day 1, but day 1 really was the jury selection. And we'll talk briefly about that after we watch this video. It's just a couple of minutes long.
In his murder, prosecutors and defense attorneys for the 3 former officers charged spoke directly to the jury, laying out their cases. Jurors will see video of the beating. Former officers Matthew Gallagher, Nicholas Kiefer, and David Kingsley faced 25 years to life in prison if convicted. Prosecutors say the officers took turns punching, kneeing, pepper spraying, choking, and pinning Brooks down. But the defense says it was a confusing and stressful situation, with officers trying to get Brooks to comply with their orders.
Now, how can I tell you?
High emotions inside the Oneida County courtroom today, with opening arguments getting underway in the trial of the 3 officers charged with murdering inmate Robert Brooks.
The new guy at Marcy, Robert Brooks, met the welcoming committee of these 3 defendants, and in less than an hour, he was dead.
Special Prosecutor Bill Fitzpatrick laying out the evidence jurors will hear, calling the attack on Robert Brooks a carefully orchestrated act of sheer, unimaginable brutality.
And he's pleading for his life. He's begging, someone tell me what I did wrong. Why is this happening to me?
Hey, JB, I have to ask you, I took away from this statement that Prosecutor Fitzpatrick made here is maybe there was audio that we don't know about, because how is he saying in open court that Robert Brooks was saying, what did I do? I found that interesting. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I don't think there is audio. I think there's audio. We'd hear it at the trial. That's evidence that the prosecution can't withhold. And they'd have to also turn it over to the defense. So even if the prosecution doesn't present it as part of their, case, the defense would likely play it. And also, it would end up leaking at some point. So we'll hear it.
I ever heard,
but
this version of that Robert.
So
Brooks.
it's what you have to. It's argument. And one of the legal rules of opening and closing statement is that you have some liberty. You have a wide range. There's a wide range of acceptable argument. It doesn't have to. It can be based. It can be a deduction based on the facts that they're reasonably expecting to present. Right. So. One of the
unimpound town here, one of our channel members said maybe it was something that we might hear about later on from a witness that was in the room, from multiple people. Don't forget there was a lot of people in that infirmary, so maybe the investigators from the state police might have interviewed somebody, and maybe they were going to come on and say that they heard him say that, because I never heard a prosecutor just speculate that this is what somebody said. And if we listen, I'm going to play it again. He says pretty much, let's listen to it.
Why is this happening to me? Someone tell his life. And he's pleading for his life. He's begging, someone tell me what I did wrong. Why is this happening to me? And he's also choking and drowning on his own blood.
Brooks arrived at Marcy at 9:07.
All right. So
you're right. I mean, listening to it a second time, he does say it with a certainty that certainly implies that someone's going to testify to that fact. That has not happened yet, and there's only really one witness left, and that's Sergeant Glenn Trombley. Now, I will say, one of the curious things about the trial so far is we haven't heard any testimony about what was being said.
Correct.
By Brooks. Or, there was testimony. Kiefer Kessler testified that Kiefer said, I need to spray him. Put him down. I need to spray him. And this was part of the attack on Robert Brooks that is not recorded on the camera and happened before the action that the camera caught. So it happened between the administration building where he entered the jail, because the truck trap where they would ordinarily go through the fence closes after 4. So if someone arrives after 4, they have to come through the administration building. And just outside the administration building, when they get to the walkway inside the prison, Kiefer tells Kessler and Anzalone to put Brooks on the ground, and he pepper sprays him. He's face down on the ground, and Kiefer pepper sprays him.
Let's talk about day 1, well, day 2 here, where this opening was done, and then the openings by the 3 defense attorneys. Can you set up for our listeners the people in the gallery? Yeah, you have the news, you have first row is for attorneys, and second row probably news and so forth. The seating arrangements, and I'm going to put your, if it's okay with you, the freelance news.org. You did great blogging for every day. So for those of you who want to get a play-by-play from JB, he has it up on the freelance news.org, and I'll encourage everyone to go and subscribe to it, support him through his website. But yeah, JB, just can you set up for our listening audience, like, was there many family members there, community members? Were there?
It's a big courtroom. There are 4 rows of benches. On the left, the first row are journalists, and all on that left side, so facing the back of the courtroom, right, facing the jury, facing the judge. On the left, all journalists. In the middle, you have the prosecution in the first row, the prosecution's people, and behind them can be anybody. And then in the next row, you have Brooks, Robert Brooks Jr. has been sitting there throughout the trial with one of his lawyers, I think. And then on the other side, Kingsley's wife or girlfriend, I'm not sure which, sits there, and she has a emotional support dog with her in the courtroom who's usually sleeping at her feet.
Interesting. We didn't get a chance to talk because I'm trying to condense this and go quickly, and I'm kind of getting all over the place here. We didn't talk about the jury makeup. There's 12 jurors and there's 4 alternates. As per your freelance blog, it says that 7 men, 9 women, and then it gives like a potential of the breakdown. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So the biggest takeaway that the public needs to know from jury selection is that 2 black women were removed from the jury in secret. So there's a questioning of prospective jurors by the court and by the attorneys, by the prosecutor, and by the defense attorneys. And that happens at the front of the courtroom. And it's minimal questions. They go over like the questionnaire the jurors fill out. And it's at that point where most jurors are dismissed.
Okay.
The ones that make it through are seated in the jury box. And then the next person steps up and they talk with the lawyers in the front of the court. So you don't know why those people are dismissed unless you can catch one outside and they tell you why.
Right.
That's one. So then once they get a panel, once they fill the jury box, they do questioning in open court. So you get to hear the questions that the lawyer asks and the answers that the prospective jurors give. And then the lawyers and the judge go in the back, and then they come back out and they say who they picked. And if your name is not called, you get discharged. So it was during that second process that 2 black women were excluded from the jury. And because it happened, in secret behind the closed doors of the courtroom, we don't know the reason why.
Right. Right. It could be many different reasons why that would happen.
Right. So there's like a South Asian man on the jury. There's a light-skinned guy who could either be light-skinned black or Hispanic. And there's 2 or 3 Hispanic-looking women as well.
Okay. So it's a decent breakdown, but Obviously, we would have liked to have seen some black jurors. It's representative of some of the surrounding areas.
Utica, where the trial is taking place in upstate Oneida County, New York, about an hour and a half west of Albany in the Mohawk Valley. Utica is a refugee city, as a resettlement city. There are people there from Africa, from Eastern Europe, Bosnia, Herzegovina, the former Kosovo, Middle Eastern, African guys. I mean, it's literal melting pot, Utica, and they have a mostly white, mostly older folks jury.
Okay, that's interesting, and I just wanted to set that up for the folks who are watching, because unfortunately, there's no cameras in the courtroom. They're allowing the opening statement and I think closing statements. Correct me if I'm wrong, JB. So
yes, that's the plan.
We're relying on somebody like you, and again, if you go to, this is his, I'll put it full screen, but this is his blog that he does, and we're up to day 3 here, October 8th, and if you look at this, he goes by, like, I love the timestamps where you're giving people blow by blow on it. Now, you're not doing this real time? You do this after the fact, right?
Contemporaneous. So I'm taking handwritten notes, and then within minutes, when I find a good place to pause, I stop and try to distill it for folks and type it in.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Because, some of the journalists and some of the news folks do like the live X posts and stuff like that. I think it's distracting to do that, or you have to have some skills to do that in a courtroom. I know I wouldn't be able to do it because I want to really pay attention to what's going on. But this is fantastic because nobody's getting anything from mainstream media. I look for daily updates, like video updates from some of the locals, and I really don't see anything. I'm going to add Amazing Ant into the chat because she has a lot that she could add to this, and she's in the chat adding stuff, talking about, searches and handcuffs and all the different things that we're going to get into right now. But on Wednesday, Commissioner Marticelli, or Marticelli, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but first name is Christopher, Deputy Commissioner. He comes in and is called by the prosecution, and correct me if I'm wrong, called by Fitzpatrick to go over like procedures and so forth. How was that received in the courtroom, and how well did that help the prosecution as it pertains? This is a guy who represents New York State Department of Corrections. Right.
So you have to understand the prosecution's case and the burden to explain the significance of Marticello's testimony. So in the video, only Kingsley has his hands around Brooks's neck, clearly in the video. Now, Gallagher grabs Brooks while he's sitting on the table right before he's another round of assault, and Gallagher helps the other guys push Brooks down onto the table where he's being killed on, and he also puts leg shackles on him. That's Gallagher's, and that's in the video. And then Kiefer doesn't put a hand on Brooks in the video. Kiefer pepper sprayed Brooks, and you can see him in the first video shaking the can of pepper spray. Yeah. So it's clear that he's used the pepper spray. Plus, there's testimony of that from Kessler. Okay, so the problem the prosecution faces is with Kiefer and Gallagher. They don't do as much as Kingsley does, right? So to fill in these gaps, the prosecute, and remember, they're all charged with murder, so they're charged with acting in concert. So in order to convict them beyond a reasonable doubt of depraved indifference, second-degree murder, it's not intention that's required. It's deliberate indifference to a grave risk of death, right? It's so reckless that it's comparable to murder. You're
Right.
depraved indifference to human life, okay? And you're acting in concert with the others. So the prosecution has to prove that each of these guys had depraved indifference to human life and that something they did contributed to the death of Brooks.
Correct. Thank you for explaining that, because a lot of people watching, again, had no knowledge or no idea of, you know, what went on in the courtroom. And now, obviously, the three defense attorneys cross-examined the deputy commissioner, and they try to, you know, they try to make him look bad, or make the process look bad, right?
Right. So that was the first part of the answer to the question you asked before, which is, what was Marticello's significance? So Marticello's significance was that he testified it was a policy of the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision that other officers had to intervene to stop other officers from assaulting prisoners if the violence, I'm trying to find the exact quote because I have it here somewhere, but it has to be if it's unnecessary or unreasonable, okay? Then another officer has a duty to intervene to stop the you know, unreasonable or excessive use of force.
Right.
So that's why Marticello, the deputy commissioner, had to testify about that policy.
Perfect. Thank you for that explanation, and it makes sense. This is they're setting this up the proper way, and we're going to get to the second witness called by prosecution, which was Sergeant Dave Sanow. Am I saying that right? Sanow?
Yeah, this was an amazing moment in the courtroom because we all got to see Robert Brooks firsthand, and you know that video. First of all, that Sergeant Sanow was, I just have to say, what an impressive individual is how I would describe him. He, you know, he wasn't a jerk to Brooks. He listened to him and he tried to understand like what was going on with him, right?
Right.
And you get that in the video, and the most important thing that video does is it humanizes Robert Brooks. People, the nurses who interacted with him because he went to the hospital twice, all described him as alert, cooperative, calm, not threatening or violent in any way. And Sanow testified the same thing, but you get to see it for yourself in the video, and you know what you see is a guy who really is not threatening at all and is possibly suffering from a brain injury.
And you hear from the testimony from the corrections officials that he had one write-up in what, 10 years, 9.5 years?
Yeah, and it wasn't even for violence or drugs. It was for failing to report for program. So either he slept in one day and didn't go to his job, mopping the, you know, hallway or whatever.
Yep.
And you know, they gave him a I almost called it a bullshit ticket, but you get the idea.
So Robert Brooks was not a trouble or problematic inmate, prisoner, as they call them in New York State Department of Corrections, convicts. I hate that. I hate that they use that word. But at the end of the day, Robert Brooks was not in trouble. He was not causing issues for correction officers. And this sergeant took the liberty of uncuffing him. He felt that he was so not a threat to him, right? Is this the same sergeant that felt when he interviewed him after he was getting ready to be released and go over to Marcy? He uncuffed him. So this whole, and I'm trying to just go over this quickly. There was a nurse that testified prior to the sergeant, and then they got into some dialogue saying that they thought, like you said, that he was suffering from some type of brain injury because he was talking to this sergeant that he had a trip scheduled to go to Puerto Rico on December 9th. And maybe Robert Brooks was just saying that purposely to get himself transferred so he didn't get further injured by the inmates.
So the nurse, one of the nurses who testified, the medical examiner actually testified yesterday that Robert Brooks had K2 in his system. We don't know how much K2 he had in the system because the test is 0.1 nanomilliliters or something like crazy like that. So it's a really small amount. So they're not allowed. They can't tell how much or how long. Right. So the other possibility is that he was a little whacked out on K2. So you got three possibilities. You have that he's mildly mentally ill and non-threatening. He's whacked out on K2, or he's got a head injury. So with respect to the last part, head injury, the testimony is that he was assaulted twice. He was punched in the head a few times, 2 or 3, maybe 4 times altogether during both occasions. The second time was worse than the first. He said that the guy had a lock in his hand when he punched, and that guy has been described to us as 6'8", 400 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So, Brooks, I said head injury, but maybe a concussion. Maybe he was concussed. It seems kind of likely because Brooks, remember, was a slim guy. I think he 5'7", 145, something like that.
Yeah. So he was not a threat, and he wasn't violent. He had no violent history in close to a decade while incarcerated. So no. So this is, again, there's so much to cover here, and I'm trying to get through it. Technically 2, 3, 4. Day 4, the video is played for the jury, and Peacock also comes in and testifies. So I want to just quickly, if you don't mind, get your, of course, your bird's eye. You're in the courtroom. Are you sitting in the same location daily, or is it a different spot every day?
I try to sit in the front row every day. One of the days I sat in the second row. Okay. Just to mix it up a little.
Let's talk about what the jury's reaction was to the video playing, and did they play it straight through, and did they play all 4 of the angles from the different correctional officers?
Yeah, they played the videos together, one after the other. And the jury has been attuned and very attentive the entire time. No one's nodded off once. With Brooks in the courtroom sitting behind Kingsley, and then with Kingsley's wife, it's just this weird circle of death and grief over there. Yeah. And that's the side with the screen that plays in the courtroom. But because there's no audio on these recalled or recovered videos, it's just quiet in that courtroom, and it's a large courtroom and very acoustic. So the sound in there, it travels. It's very quiet. You could, if you sneeze, I mean, it'll.
I think you described in your own words that you could just hear the keyboards from the stenographers typing,
and the reporters.
So
and the jurors' reaction, they would look at the screens at the murder unfolding in front of them, and then every once in a while they would look up at the defendants, and the defendants stayed staring at the screen, probably at the instruction of their attorneys not to look away, because a juror might think, if you had to sit there and watch that, why aren't they? And you might get mad at them. So, subtle psychological stuff like that is part of jury trials.
Yeah. So did they play the video in the beginning of the day, or was it did they call in some other witnesses for the prosecution prior to that? The video, was the video played at the end of the day, or was it in the beginning?
Like in the middle, if I remember right. I mean,
yeah, it looks like on day 4 at 10 a.m. you said the murder trial for the 3 guards started with the killing of Robert Brooks, with testimony from a doctor who treated him at the Mohawk Correctional Facility after he was assaulted there. I guess this is a doctor at Wynn Hospital in Utah.
Right. Yeah.
So Dr. Andrea Martin testified at 10 in the morning. She talked about the injuries that you just went over, with being hit possibly with a combination lock, was knocked unconscious. She ordered a CT scan for head injuries, and tests revealed no acute findings, but he had no broken bones, no fractures, no brain bleed. Dr. Martin also testifies Brooke was pleasant, respectful, awake, alert, oriented, and that he had a non-threatening demeanor. This was all important to also pound home to the jury that Robert Brooks, at no time during his incarceration was he a violent or confrontational inmate, incarcerated individual. So I thought that was
no evidence to that.
Yeah, and then 10:45, Peacock comes in. Michael Peacock, who was a prisoner at Mohawk with Robert Brooks, has been called to testify, and that he's still in state custody. He was brought into the court in his green prison uniform, handcuffed, waist chained, black box with leg irons, restraints at his ankles. It's hard to believe that Judge Bauer is allowing court officers to require Peacock to be shackled in such a way. So you're giving your, your view of what they did and how they presented him, like he was some kind of Hannibal Lecter.
Well, and so it not only goes to the credibility of Peacock. This is why that was so outrageous. First of all, you're talking about human dignity, right? You're bringing some guy into a court of law as a witness in a murder trial, okay? And that guy, just as a matter of what's right, shouldn't have been required to give testimony in that manner. It's indecent, indignified, and just plain wrong. That's number one. Number two, it goes to his credibility, right? You see a guy like that, and you're sort of like trained by, television to automatically question whatever that dude says. And then it also goes to the defense theory of the case, that prisoners are so dangerous, they need to be shackled so they can strike out at any time.
Yeah.
And that's what they're saying Brooks was, right? That's how they're trying to paint Brooks. And so if I was a defense attorney, I would say, look, they didn't even trust the guy to not be shackled in the courtroom. I would say that in my summation.
Yeah.
So that's why that was so wrong.
Yeah, and you also went on to say at 11:01 that Peacock's testimony has turned out thus far to be the blockbuster of the trial. So,
well, that's because Peacock testified that it was the CO who was running the dorm, the housing unit where these guys lived, where Brooks was living, that the CO of the dorm got a gang leader to beat him up because he threw up in his cube.
Yeah.
Instead of getting medical help for the guy, this CO's reaction was to get this gang guy, this alleged guy, Swift is what Peacock called him. So you got to be like imagine Peacock is the hero so far of this thing,
because he's stepping up. He's stepping up and he's handling his business, and he's doing it because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Peacock named the gang leader as Swift, as you said. Swift beat Brooks with 2 other prisoners, Sparks and Stacks. He names them by their, nicknames.
Yeah.
Night, December 7th into the 8th, Brooks didn't sleep. He spent the entire night sitting on the top of a locker in his cube, and that morning he threw up again. referring to what Mrs. A told the gang. Peacock testified she didn't have to direct them to do it a second time. They just did it because they knew him throwing up was not what she wanted. So I feel that this female correction officer, I believe it was referred to as a female, should be identified. And I mean, this type of stuff is what leads to incarcerated individuals getting hurt or killed. I
mean, we know Fitzpatrick knows who she is.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we know that. Okay. Yeah. And so that's the kind of thing, you're investigating a murder, but you come across that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to add Amazing Ant because I know you got to get out of here in a few minutes. So, Ant, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you. You know, our community loves and respects you. Spent many times here with me and many years in the NYPD. But your perspective as it pertains to this, because you were an EMT, you worked for EMS, you know about these injuries, you know how bad it is. The injuries inflicted onto Robert Brooks, we all got to see it. So I know you have a lot to say about it.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here on a Saturday. Hi, JB. Thank you for being on the front line reporting and exposing the truth beyond even the trial. We need reporters like you to do that.
Thanks for affording me the chance to, talk to your viewers and tell them, bring them up to speed on what's going on up there.
Yeah, thank you. I like that you detailed the courtroom for those of us who can't physically be there. And I like your objective and honest truth-telling in your independent journalism. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ann. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Allow me, because, I've been invested in following this for a while. My eyes are a bit blurry. So I have a few notes. I don't need them, but I want to be accurate with one or 2 points that JB mentioned. You guys talk about the audio. So 3 things. Someone in the chat, I don't remember the name. I think it was 1969 was the last 4, was saying that this was
a good year.
What was that?
1969 was a good year.
Oh, yeah. So it was prejudicial for Peacock. I agree. I have to address that. That just came up. To be shackled, that was similar to the Luigi case. It creates prejudice. It's inhumane, first of all, humanly speaking, and then legally it creates prejudice, and there's no need for a courtroom filled with security and armed guards for that to happen. So I wanted to address that. Someone also asked what K2 was. I put it in the chat, but for those who aren't following the chat or maybe listening and can't read the chat, it's synthetic marijuana. I've dealt with it a lot as an EMT, as a police officer, and a sergeant. Most of the cases when EMT police are called to these scenes, one notably I had in Brooklyn, he was naked on a countertop, sweating, high blood pressure. His heart rate was going fast. He was violent. He was screaming. And I've never seen someone on K2 actively on K2. JB, I know you said there was a small trace, but I'm talking about
very small amount. As a matter of fact, Amazing Ant and JB, I'm trying to condense this last day because this is important. I'm going to put it up. This is the medical examiner. You know what she said about the K2? It helped to ease the pain of the freaking damage that these monsters inflicted. These former correction officers are murderers, and the pain that they inflicted onto Robert Brooks that we all watched on the video. She said, if anything, this small amount of K2 acted as a kind of like,
but my point is actually opposite. I don't think he had K2. I don't trust anyone in this investigation to independently investigate. I would ask for an independent autopsy. I would get someone from New York, OCME, the office where Ed used to work, for the medical examiner. Right. The reason why I was describing K2, that's how it presents. With trace amounts, yes, someone could be lethargic, but in the condition he was before he got to Marcy, or he was transferred, he was fine. That even if he was in K2, had little dose of K2, it wasn't recordable. When I say recordable, by his symptoms and behavior. So I think, this is my opinion, I think it's BS, and it's a rated G PG show. So I'm not going to say what I really think. I think it's a lie. That's my opinion. I don't think it's just a mouth for any of my friends and family watching. I think it's bullshit because, as I told you, every K2 patient I've had has been explosive. Then when it starts going out of their system, their lethargic isn't the way Robert Brooks looked, and he was dead. So that brings me to my next point, so I don't take away your precious time, and I know JP has to run. This brings me to my next point, which is really critical. And I talked about it last time as an EMT and a sergeant. First, it was all inhumane. But second, for those of you who are questioning about the body camera, when I got seriously injured in the NYPD, they moved me to a unit many of you know in the private sector called risk management, okay, with the NYPD. We have to assess body cameras. And even as a patrol supervisor, every night I had to stay an extra hour or sometimes longer reviewing a certain amount of body cameras for unusual circumstances like the Robert Brooks. So to answer the big multi-million-dollar question, I'm going to get pushed back. And for those of you who are Googling on AI will verify. There's 3 different body camera axons that they had, the original, the 3, and the 4. On patrol, NYPD, and I hope the NYPD is listening to this. Officers have gone to their union because the body camera simultaneously came on while they were using the bathroom. It sounds funny, but let me tell you why I know Robert Brooks, there may be audio. Officers went to their unions because while they were using the bathroom, we have all our gear. Sometimes you hit the door, you know, you hit your gear, your gun belt, whichever. There's a video that was in another podcast of an officer using the bathroom and the body camera came on. So if you Google, and I wrote a note to make sure I have it right, the event mode, the cameras the officers thought were on standby. If you hit the power button, it goes into sleep mode. However, if you hit that power button 2 times or it gets accidentally pressed, which has happened to me, it goes and starts recording on standby mode. Now, for those of you saying, well, Sergeant Amazing Ant, we didn't see the light blinking. The officers can remove and disengage the indicator light. And I think these guys have done that before so that the perpetrators in their minds, or the inmates, I hate to say that, those in custody don't know they're being recorded, maybe doing our transport. So just so you know, per the patrol guide in every police agency, when you do a transport, you have to record. They forgot to shut it off. I believe there is audio, and I don't believe it was released because it might have been, yep.
All right, here's why I don't think that there's audio, because what's the upside to the prosecutor, to Letitia James, the attorney general, to release it and say adamantly that there is no audio? That would screw this whole trial up. If they told the public numerous times, we were all told, look, this video has been viewed millions and millions of times all across the world. So for them to say that there is an audio, the reason I said, well, maybe there was audio is because of what Fitzpatrick said. Now, thinking rationally and having a minute to think about it, they interviewed the shit out of everybody. So some of these lower, ranking COs that had a little bit of time on the job, and as we know, the one that testified on Friday, Kessler, I don't think he had 10 years on the job. He had under, right?
7.
Yeah, so he's a 7 year.
There's been testimony about both of these issues that you're talking about, and I'd want to just share it with you briefly.
Okay.
Right. So regarding the cameras, okay, and the possible audio. So what the testimony from 2 high-ranking DOCS officials was this: that not only did they pull the cameras from each of the people that they thought was involved, right? That's who they pulled the cameras from first, right? So then once they realized that they can recover video, they pulled all the cameras in the jail, all 205 of them.
Wow.
Okay. So you're not the first to ask this question. I've heard this one too. Why isn't there more video that we are seeing? I don't know the answer to that.
I'm willing to speculate.
That's the testimony regarding what they did. Okay. Right. Now, with regard to Brooks's condition, so if we have the video from 2 days before from Sayo at Mohawk, and we have testimony from Kessler, which happened on Friday, as to Brooks's demeanor when he arrived at Marcy, and that demeanor was, they described him as slacking, sort of like lagging behind while they were trying to get him to walk through, Kessler wasn't describing him as aggressive. And the lawyers, the defense lawyers, in their opening statement didn't say that Brooks attacked him. They said they used force on him to ensure compliance, to get him to comply. And what were they trying to get him to comply with? So this is the first time we're hearing this. We hear it from Kessler. Put your hands deep in your pockets.
Right.
So they weren't happy with how far he put his hands in his pockets. And that's where this starts.
Yeah.
And Walrath attacks him while Kessler's talking to him. That's the testimony.
Let's get through day 5. You say in the opening on day 5, 9:43, trial is expected to begin with testimony from the medical examiner performing the autopsy on Brooks and 2 former guards who were granted a sweetheart plea bargain to testify. Prosecution witnesses are expected to testify. After that, Robert Kessler and Sergeant Glenn Trombley, leader of the beat-up squad that killed Brooks. So at 10:11, Dr. Katita Merkulova, am I saying that right?
Yeah. Merkulova.
Yeah. All right, I screwed that up. I'm always good at that. She's the Onondaga County Medical Examiner. Supposedly, she's a rookie, right? Were you saying that to me?
She was like 500.
That's not a rookie.
Like 504. I have the number in there.
508 autopsies to date, and is now explaining basic facts about her job and what her autopsies are.
She was a good witness. She was an effective witness.
Yep. So she testified that the assaults on Brooks that he suffered at the hands of these prisoners at Mohawk Correctional Facility before he was beaten and choked by the guards at Marcy Correctional Facility did not in any way contribute to his death at the hands of the Marcy guards. This is a key moment in the trial for the defense to be successful. The defense must cast doubt on the doctor, her testimony. Expecting a lengthy and aggressive cross-examination. Was it lengthy and aggressive?
Yeah, they failed. They had to discredit her, and they didn't. They had to shake her from that conclusion, and they were just woefully ineffective. She was sort of like mean. She kind of like mean girl on them. It was kind of.
I love it.
It was sort of entertaining to watch.
She Barbara butchered them.
They need Barbara Butcher. They need another independent examiner. I'm being really serious.
Yeah, but Barbara Butcher's a legal medical death investigator. Right. So they definitely need another medical examiner. But she confirms that the synthetic cannabinoids that were called K2 in his blood, the test revealed the existence of K2 not quantifiable, but in the minimum amount the test can detect is 0.1 nanograms. She testified that the K2 did not in any way contribute to his death. She added that it was only a pain relief to alleviate some of the pain he was experiencing by being beaten to death. She also detailed the extensive injuries to Brooks suffered at the hands of the beat-up squad, compressions of the neck, multiple blunt impact injuries. She testified resulted in evidence that was not enough blood to deliver oxygen to the brain. Brooks's nose was broken. Nose bone was broken into multiple places that caused active bleeding in the nasal cavity.
Yeah, he drowned on his own blood. And Kessler testified that at one point, after he was beaten and choked in the infirmary, quote unquote, emergency room, that he tried to talk to Brooks, and all Brooks did was garble. And so that's him aspirating his own blood. And the shocking thing about her testimony was that Brooks's injuries were so severe, he was beaten so badly by these guys that even if it had happened in the best emergency room, I think the example was Johns Hopkins University, that doctors wouldn't have been able to save him.
Yeah, here it is.
But the nurse could have suctioned him, looking at it from a technical point of view for all in the room.
At the time that they allowed the nurses to get in there, the damage was already done. I think
the nurse had a legal obligation, according to the New York State law, to jump in without permission.
And I agree. They didn't do anything. I just
have to reiterate
they didn't do anything.
Would they have that device that they would need to do that?
The suction, the catheter, yeah. They would have the suction machine in these facilities. It's part of basic life support. So if an EMT carries a suction, a nurse certainly has several of them. Yank hour, we call them.
Okay. But they didn't use it, and they weren't allowed to go in there until he was completely unresponsive, and they beat the shit out of him.
Which makes it intentional, which makes it even more. It wasn't even manslaughter.
But why they didn't get charges beyond me. So
Yeah,
at
exactly.
10:26, he writes, the defendants are squirming. I love this. The defendants are squirming more in their seats now than they have at any point prior in the trial. It's almost as if they can't even believe all the damage that they did to Brooks. It's also dawning on them that they're probably going to prison for a very long time. JB, I love this.
That was great, JB.
And here's the end.
Thank you for that. I try to add more. You know, a lot of these sort of like, you know, dispatches from the courtroom, they're very short and very dry, you know, just giving like facts. But because like I've been in that position as a defendant, you know, like I sort of know, I can sort of feel what guys are going through at that time. And her testimony, I mean, I think at the end, first of all, her testimony went on for an hour and a half, just listing injuries.
Right.
You know, if it wasn't an hour and a half exactly, it sure felt like it. There was so much for her to list that at some point I think someone in the jury started snarling because it was just making them so angry.
Let's talk about former correction officer Kessler's testimony for the state. He's looking at a sweet deal, 5 to 7 years for gang assault. Right after the medical examiner was done, Kessler got up. Can you condense it so this way we can get you out of here?
So Kessler got a sweetheart deal, but he sort of earned it because he was an excellent witness for the prosecution. He sounded competent and also short-tempered and wired, which sort of goes with the territory, right? It's going to be tough to get around Kessler's testimony for the defense because Kessler was especially damning for Kiefer.
Right.
You know, Gallagher, not so much from Kessler, but ultimately Gallagher is going to come down to a jury deciding whether him putting his hands, helping the others push Brooks down to the table and shackling his ankles while he was already almost dead, whether that's depraved indifference to human life and worthy of a murder conviction or something less.
Yeah.
So Gallagher probably has the best shot at getting acquitted of murder. Kessler's testimony was damning for Kiefer because it described that assault with the pepper spray that we didn't know about before.
Right. Yeah. And that's in your.
You believe Kessler. Kessler, when I say Kessler was a good witness, I mean Kessler was credible.
Yeah. And that's important as it pertains to what you've seen thus far. Is the state winning this case thus far, or do we have more to go?
This is not Rodney King. This is not Rodney King. This is not Rodney King.
I feel the video shown to this jury of that beating, which again, you played it and you did a great narration. By the way, I'm going to plug that as well. It's going to be linked in the description here. You guys, I encourage you all to go over there and see it. He breaks it down, and almost 99.9% of what you narrated on that video is coming to fruition here in the trial. So,
well, the thing with Walrath, you know, I said in the video when I was analyzing it back in January, that from Walrath's silent interaction with Brooks, it appeared that Walrath, quote, was there when it started. Right. You know, it would have, I was thinking he started it, but that would have been too much of a gamble. And it turns out, based on Kessler's testimony, that Walrath, in fact, started it by attacking Brooks first and putting him in a headlock in the administration building, you you know, first thing before they even got inside the grounds of the facility.
Yeah. JB, I want to thank you for everything that you've done here tonight for this audience. And please, guys, go over here to the Freelance website, the freelancenews.org. I'll link it in the description, but right here is the most important part. It's the donate.
Thank you, DutyRon.
Yeah, go over to this donate, and we're going to make a $200 donation tonight on behalf of Crime Time, DutyRon, and Ed Wallace and the entire community.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Well, I'll do that. I don't want to dox myself on this video, so I'm gonna leave that up over here, and then I'll take care of it after JB leaves. But JB, you told me you had a half hour. I got an hour out of you, so I think we won tonight, our community, and we definitely appreciate it, because the news is not giving Robert Brooks and his family the coverage he deserves.
There's a lot to New York City news. Nobody from New York City is up there covering it.
It's a shame. It's a goddamn shame. And look,
you know, although most prisoners in the state system are from New York City.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the shame of it all. And that, you know, look, we had News Nation, Court TV, NBC, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. When Letitia James back in late December released this body cam footage, it was on David Muir nightly news. I've been looking for it since this trial started, and not one of the local New York City news outlets. And I got to go to upstate. Albany is covering it. But the views that they're getting on their channels as they put it out is 200, 300 views. Look, we got 500,000 subscribers.
People can't deal with the fact that a guy was tortured and murdered by the government in their state.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they you know, all they see is Trump, Trump, Trump.
You know, without getting political, again, like I said, this is a problem that lies within New York State. And the people who run New York State, meaning the governor, her office is responsible for these beat-up squads existing, because she now knows about it for over almost a year now. It's in her face for a year. What the fuck has been done? Zero. A big gots, because we know it from talking to incarcerated individuals that are still in Marcy. And I had one of our viewers, Bonnie, who came, her family member is incarcerated in Marcy, and he said to her, just as recent as a week ago, it's back to status quo. Inmates are getting beat up. They're back to square one. It's back to square one.
By the worst officers, by the way, because the best officers quit.
Yeah. Because they can no longer do what they did without being under the microscope now.
So those who are left are really the worst.
It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Listen, a lot of people in the chat are saying thank you. I just want to highlight a few of them. Thank you, JB. Here's Thunder Horse, who's always out here. Thank you, JB. Keep up the good work. A lot of people are sending love and support. And if you guys want to go and support him, here's the place. This is where you got to go. I'm getting ready to donate. So thank you all for being here, JB. We're going to continue just for a few minutes without you. I hope you enjoy your Saturday, and I think I'm going to be taking a trip on Tuesday or Wednesday up to the courtroom, and I might, Tuesday. I might be going out.
Tuesday's the day for Trombley, because Trombley didn't testify as expected on Friday.
Right.
We didn't expect him to finish, but he possibly could have started, but he didn't. So Tuesday is Trombley Tuesday.
Trombley Tuesday. I think I'm going to make it. It's a 5-hour trip. I'll leave here at like 3 in the morning, and I'll get there. You know, you said court doesn't start till about 10 anyways.
Yeah.
So,
I want to thank you, Ron. Thanks for having me on and for allowing me to share the Robert Brooks story with your listeners.
Thank you.
We're honored to have you, and we thank you tremendously. There he goes, JB from the freelancenews.org. Go check out his stuff. Check out his YouTube. We'll see you soon, JB. Thank you. All right. That was awesome.
Wow. That was great. Independent reporting and honest.
You know, and you know what the great part about that, Amazing Ant, is we would never get that bird's eye view inside the court because no other reporters are talking about it. Mm-hmm. No mainstream media. Of course, I have these little pieces, these little clips where they're outside of the court, but none of them are allowed to talk about what happened inside, which there's nothing wrong with it. but like, this is not priority. The murder of Robert Brooks is no longer a priority to mainstream media, and that's the shitty part of it.
I think it'd be great if we message all the networks from your podcast.
They're not going to do shit. It's going to be a waste of our time.
It's always worth a try for me because, you know, you got to get a little bit more oil, and sometimes you strike. And I've found in some situations in my life, that's how I've been able to get through. I do know the chief at Letitia James' office. I told this publicly in January, and he did watch the show. He's in charge of the office LIMO, Limeo. You can Google it. They investigate these situations. However, they were told by higher powers, and this is political, so I'm only going to say this one blurb. They were told to back off, and they were going to handle in the county in-house. And this is for those of you in the future, perhaps DutyRon and I will do a members-only unedited episode, and I'll share more behind the scenes, some stuff DutyRon knows of unedited NYPD and just general police hot topics and corruption.
Yeah, there's a ton of it.
I think that because of the magnitude of these officers, for anyone watching years ago in the 80s, 90s, we had the Mullen Commission, Serpico, and some big names you all know. I think this is up there, and they're really trying to neutralize the situation because out of the governor's office, there's a lot of other stories which are now in the news, and this is very damning for administrations. And what's sad, I'm watching politics reign over justice, and that's why I like JP on this show, that he and you and this show. And that's why in the middle of everything going on in life and stuff, I said I had to be a part of this because I've seen firsthand here with the NYPD, and so have you, but with some situations I'm going through, I've seen in the New York State, the silence of justice because someone's not a certain status. Mr. Brooks was, what did you say you don't like hearing? A convicted felon or inmate? Yeah, he's a human.
Yeah,
and,
too bad.
Right. And even more so, we have to safeguard, we're guardians of all people. And we have to safeguard the safety mentally and physically of these humans who are allowed a chance for restorative justice. Conservative felons here in the chat. Hello to conservative felons.
Yeah, I love conservative felons.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Proof of restorative justice.
Brooks was way past 80% of his sentence.
Yes.
He was getting out. He was going to be
but
out.
Even if he wasn't, he didn't deserve to die the way he died. Right, which we agree.
This is the coverage that Friday got, and Friday was a very important day. There was the testimony from the cooperating correction officers, former corrections officers, and it got 1 minute and 44 seconds.
A former corrections officer who was there the night inmate Robert Brooks was beaten to death at Marcy Correctional Facility in December.
Robert Kessler took a plea in this case and today testified for the prosecution, telling the jury the shocking things his former fellow COs and himself did that night. News Channel 2's Jolene Ferris has your top story.
Robert Kessler took a plea to gang assault in the trial of 3 of his former colleagues on trial for the murder of inmate Robert Brooks at Marcy Correctional Facility in December. Today, he testified for the prosecution. He said the night Brooks came to Marcy from Mohawk Correctional, he was frustrated and angry over work aggravation and punched Brooks twice in the ribs with a closed fist and delivered multiple peroneal blows to Brooks' leg, temporarily disabling blows to a nerve just above the knee. Kessler said former CO Walrath assaulted Brooks without provocation, putting him in a headlock, which he says COs are not permitted to do. Kessler said defendant Nicholas Kiefer pepper sprayed Brooks for no reason while Brooks was chest down on the ground. He testified he saw every person in the room at the Marcy Infirmary at one point strike Brooks. He said at one point, CO Walrath had to be pulled off of Robert Brooks, saying Walrath essentially lost it. Kessler will spend 5 to 7 years in state prison in exchange for his guilty plea to gang assault. Testimony in the trial of David Kingsley, Nicholas Kiefer, and Matthew Gallagher resumes Tuesday.
Because Monday is Columbus Day.
Columbus Day.
Thank you, Robbie, our good friend from Australia. First super chat of the live stream. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you and your support always, my brother. I appreciate you. Thank you, Robbie. So I just wanted to play that because that shows you that was 1 minute and 44 seconds they gave that video. There was no reporter commentary. It was studio reporting with file footage from the outside of Oneida County Courthouse. I'm going to drive there on Tuesday. As you guys can hear, I'm sick as a dog. But Amazing Ann, I wanted to just say condolences to you for loss of your uncle.
Yeah.
So sad and so,
Thank
you
you.
know, not expected. So you know, again, we as a community, we send you love and strength and prayers. So it sucks.
Thank you.
It
Thank
sucks.
you all.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
want to just say thank you to the moderators, the replay viewers, the super chatters, the folks who buy cups of coffee, and also who give super thanks at the end while they watch the replay. Don't forget, our replay viewers are so valuable to us because there's folks who are outside of the country that it's the morning or overnight for them. And they don't get to see this until 10, 12 hours later. And they are our replay crew. So if you're part of the replay crew, let us know in the comment section. Just put
I usually am.
hashtag replay. We love all of our viewers, whether they're live or on the replay. Again, this kind of streaming, YouTube usually does kind of censors it. They don't want people to see it. And that's also saying, hey, we don't want you guys to see this ugliness, which is unfair. Because like I said, I could do a live stream about the protests down in Texas, down in Portland, or the protests in Illinois at the ICE facilities, and there'll be thousands of people watching it because YouTube just wants everybody to see that.
Right.
But they want to just kind of sweep it away. And that's fair.
Can I conclude with finishing my point about the body cameras? Because it came up in the chat, and I'm not yelling at you. For everyone listening, I'm not yelling at DutyRon. I have a hoarse voice. It's been a long week, and I have something going on, DutyRon. So I'm not yelling at you. I just wanted to.
You're good.
And I don't have my AirPods. I also wanted to know if maybe at the end when we conclude, if you could post that picture I sent you from Ground Zero at the very end with my Uncle Louie, if you could. And I'll tell everyone why in a minute. So 2 more points because I'm in my studious mode today. I'm not arguing about the audio. Yes, DutyRon. Most likely, I'm going to say it, and you may not like it, but I've seen it firsthand in the NYPD Risk Management Division. There's no public audio, but Google this, everyone, because I know there's Googlers there and AI. There is, in the sleep mode, there is camera that is still powered on that saves audio and video data in buffer mode. I just Googled it to make sure I'm not rusty and I know my facts. And I know this because, yes, and then I'll tell everyone when you put that. So I'm telling everyone this now for those, I'm on the fence. I'm leaning towards there's audio, but hear me out, everyone. Administrators of the agency can access that audio, like the officer who was in the bathroom. DutyRon, I think there was something that came up. However, there were so many cameras going on, it might have been muffled, but let's say there's no audio. Robert Brooks, you can read his mouth saying to stop, you know? So anyway, back to the picture. I wasn't sure if you were putting it there on the screen. Side note, for those of you who sent condolences, last week today, my uncle died of a heart attack. I'm there with him at Ground Zero, and this uncle was really there for all of us neighborhood kids and myself when I was younger. But he's the reason why I went into becoming a first responder, and I was supposed to go to Navy OCS to become a surgeon on 9/11, and instead he was flown into Ground Zero by helicopter, and I was down there. And him, his wife, my aunt, my cousin, a detective, we all bumped into each other waiting online at a bathroom at McDonald's. Remember, Ronnie, on by Century 21 on Broadway? And that Humvee is burnt and has debris. It's all damaged. And him and I connected there. And we stayed there from 9/11, where we met President Bush and everyone when they came. And also all the way to the end of February, which we can do us live another time. I rarely talk about it, but I was there to the very last day where we found a very good friend of mine who worked. We found him. And we weren't going to leave till we found whoever we could find. And so my uncle was a Vietnam vet, Uncle Louie, we called him. He was a bus driver for the city of New York. When he came back, he became an inspector. And he was one of those people that led in the front. He was an inspector still driving a bus. And he did 37 years with the military. And we were surprised yesterday, DutyRon, I didn't tell you. In New York, there's Calverton. It's his national cemetery. We were surprised. His Vietnam partner, who we know for years, who's disabled, put on his uniform. They did a 21 gun salute, and he presented the family with the rifle shells, and they did full military honors. So we're celebrating his life. We just didn't really have time to process it, and I was supposed to see him Sunday. So it's just a lot of, things. But I had to hop onto this podcast, even though I've been offline for a while for many reasons, because Robert Brooks and the other case we're covering, Luigi, is really, Robert Brooks is probably the worst case we've ever seen in our careers or our lives. Ever. Of human death. And DutyRon and I have seen a lot of human death that we don't talk about publicly, but this has to be talked about because it's uncovering an epidemic, and it brought a lot of attention to status, to corruption, to political theater, and to discrimination and human rights. So I think that whatever your belief system is out there, whatever your political theater is, there's no contraindication for taking someone's life and human loss. And I want to thank everyone for supporting the justice we're bringing here.
Thank you. Well said, Amazing Aunt. And you know what? Listen, again, there could be any possibilities about the audio. I just was looking at it from the prosecutor's standpoint.
Yeah.
And if
so
there
enhance the case, right?
Audio there, and a defense attorney found out it was being withheld or lied about, they could lose the whole case.
Yeah, it could be compromised. But how many things have we seen agencies? Come on, DutyRon. Yeah. I'm on the fence with you.
But again, to keep this simple, I was just saying that I don't think that the special prosecutor, if there was in fact audio available, that he would lie and say it wasn't available. So I think what he was saying in his opening was statements that we may hear about. Then JB confirmed that he thinks that we may hear about a witness that came forward that might have a little time on the job, or maybe one of those nurses that they interviewed that wasn't charged said that he heard Robert Brooks saying that from the hallway. So at the end of the day, let's keep, I mean, I want to keep the speculation to the minimal.
I know.
But I was basically evaluating what DA Fitzpatrick was saying, and he was saying it with strong conviction that Robert Brooks was saying, why? What did I do to deserve this?
But you could see him saying it, though, like his lips.
Yeah, yeah. We're going to follow this closely. I'm going to be possibly driving, and it's not 100% yet. Depends on the weather. We're expecting a nor'easter up here. Ed Wallace is down at his New Jersey home, shoring up the boat, shoring up the bulkhead, and keeping his house safe. So prayers to Ed Wallace and everyone. But more importantly, we're going to keep on the trial of Robert Brooks, the murder of Robert Brooks. The corrections officers, David Kingsley, Nicholas Kiefer, and Matthew Gallagher are on trial for murder in the second degree and other charges. So we're going to stay close to it. We're going to keep in contact with JB. I want to send prayers, strength, and positive vibes to the Brooks family, to Robert Brooks's son, Robert Brooks Jr.
His father.
You know, the father. They all need our love and support. They're going through it, and they are there every day at that trial. I also want to send all of my strength and prayers to the prosecutor and everybody who's going to be responsible for bringing justice, and the jury. I want to, again, send strength to the jury as well. Hopefully they will hear and listen to everything and come back with a fair and just verdict, which would be guilty. On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, I want to say thank you. And Amazing Aunt, thank you so much for being here,
for having me,
being patient, and giving us your 2 cents. And I will see you guys soon on the next one. Peace and love. Thank you.